In this lesson, we'll finally finish calculating the correlation coefficient by hand. In our previous lesson, we talked about each piece of the correlation formula. There are 7 numbers we calculated from the original data. Let's try putting these values into the formula. We will start by looking at the top half of the equation. The top is called the numerator. This formula looks ugly, but is actually quite simple. I like to rewrite it in a friendlier form. Number 1 subtract number 2 times number 3. Notice that where the two parentheses touched each other, we're going to multiply. All we need to do now is put the right numbers in the right positions. We can replace the first term in the formula with the number 31,050. We need to write this number in the appropriate position. We can replace the second term in the formula with the number 60 that we calculated earlier. We can replace the third term in the formula with the number 545. Now we need to use the order of operations to put these numbers together. There are 2 math operators in this formula, a subtraction symbol and a multiplication symbol. In the world of math, multiplying is considered more important than subtraction. This means that we always multiply before we subtract. In this example, we will multiply 60 times 545. Our equation can now be written like this. We save subtraction for the last step. When you put these numbers in your calculator, you get negative 1,650. This is our final answer. Notice that it was negative. Don't panic. This just means that we might be dealing with a negative correlation. Unfortunately, the bottom half of the equation is a bit more complicated. It involves square roots. We call the bottom the denominator. Once again, it helps to replace the scary symbols with friendlier expressions. Notice that where the two roots touch each other, we're going to multiply. We can replace the first term in the formula with the number 4,200. We need to write this number in the appropriate position. We can replace the second term in the formula with the number 3,600 that we calculated earlier. If we continue this process, we end up with the following. Now we need to use the order of operations to put these numbers together. There are 4 math operations in this formula: a square root, a parenthesis, a subtraction, and multiplication symbol. In the world of math, parentheses are more important than anything else. This means that we're supposed to do whatever is inside the parenthesis first. Normally, we wouldn't subtract until the end, but in this case, the parenthesis wants us to do it first. Square roots are more important than multiplying, so that is what we need to do next. You'll have to find the square root button on your calculator. The first square root is 24.5, and the second square root is 67.5. Notice that I rounded my answers to 1 decimal place instead of writing the entire thing for my calculator. The last thing we need to do is multiply. If you put these numbers in your calculator, you'll get the final answer. That was a lot of work to get a single number. But we still aren't finished quite yet. We calculated the top number for the top of the equation, and we calculated a number for the bottom. Now we need to put them together. We do this by dividing. If you put this in your calculator, you'll get the correlation coefficient. Remember that if the coefficient is close to 1 or -1, it is a very strong correlation. In this case, we're extremely close. Also remember that a negative correlation means that the variables are doing opposite things. In other words, as the pill size got bigger, the amount of cholesterol got smaller. When the correlation is this strong, it means that there is good evidence that the pills are working. It isn't just a coincidence. The two variables are definitely related. Let's see if you can work through an example on your own. This can feel overwhelming at first, but remember that it helps to break the process down into smaller pieces. Deal with the top of the equation first, then the bottom, and then put them together. Pause the video now and try solving this problem by yourself. Then resume the video and check your work. Let's start with the top. Make it friendly. Plug in the values. Multiply first. Subtract at the end. And we are halfway done. Now let's look at the bottom. Make it friendly. Plug in the values. Do parentheses first. Next, do the square root. Finish by multiplying. We're almost there. We have a value for the top and a value for the bottom. Now we just need to put them together. Put this in your calculator and you get your final answer. Once again, this is a strong correlation because 0.96 is close to 1. This indicates that the weight of the sea turtle does influence how many eggs it will lay. Let's review quickly the order of operations so you'll not make silly mistakes on your assignments. The first thing you should deal with are parentheses. The second thing you should deal with are roots and squares. The third thing you should deal with is multiplying or dividing. The last thing you should deal with is adding or subtracting. These rules are true not just in statistics, but in all math classes you will ever take.